Hello and welcome one and all to Sensational Support Podcast with Fiona, Send 101. Today we're going to be looking at communication and social interaction. We're going to be looking at what to expect, how it may seem different, and we're going to be focusing on the 0 to 3 months. So what to expect? Usually in the first few days you would expect long periods of sleep. You would expect the wakefulness to lengthen. With the adjustment of being in a much larger atmosphere, a much larger, louder, abrasive space than the womb, babies are fretful and they are crying, but there will be growing calmness as they become used to this new outside world. Also within the first few days, you would expect the baby to have reflexes. The ones that are linked with communication and social interaction are the rooting reflex and the sucking reflex. The rooting reflex is when anything that brushes against the baby's cheek causes them to turn towards that thing with the mouth open, ready to suck, ready to feed. The sucking reflex is when you see it, it's the mouth opening and closing and the tongue popping off the roof of their mouth. This reflex occurs when they are hungry. This reflex also occurs once the baby has been fed and their tummy is full, but they're in need of comfort. They will have the same sucking reflex, which can be satisfied with a pacifier soother dummy. These are survival reflexes. But when the carer responds, they learn that their sounds and their actions can gain attention. And this is the very beginning of communication and social interaction. At 6 to 8 weeks, in speech, language and communication, babies like social stimuli and will move their mouths and make facial movements in response to their carers speaking. They will stop whimpering and they will turn towards a carer's soothing voice unless they are screaming and distressed. Babies will make a little sound at the back of their throat and vowel-like sounds such as ooh and ah when they are content. Babies like social stimuli and will move their mouths and make facial movements in response to their carers speaking. They will stop whimpering and turn towards their carer's soothing voice unless they are screaming and distressed. 6 to 8 weeks in their social behaviour and play, they will stop whimpering and turn towards a carer's soothing voice or a loud sound, for example the spinning washing machine all of a sudden, unless they are screaming and distressed. So you will notice, as with adults, if a child, an infant, a newborn is really distressed, you have to gain their attention first before you'll be able to calm them down with any sounds or with your voice. Eye-to-eye contact is present and can be held or broken off by the baby during interaction whilst in close proximity to the adult. Baby will stop crying when picked up and they will look at the carer's face. So in those instances where the baby doesn't respond because they're crying and they're very distressed, when you pick them up, that's when they'll be able to stop and then they'll look at you, the carer's face. At 3 months, babies cry when they're uncomfortable or annoyed. They suck or lick their lips when they can hear the preparation sounds of food. They will show anticipation and have quicker movements and turn towards the sound of approaching voices and footsteps or the sound of their bath running if they really enjoy their bath. Baby will gurgle and coo and squeal in joy of an adult or when they're happily alone. The baby will make sounds whilst moving their hands and their arms and smiling and keeping eye contact. So all of those social, physical behaviours combined together. Making sounds, moving their hands, smiling and keeping eye contact. Their social play and behaviour at 3 months will be them staring into their carer's face whilst at their breast chest, feeding or interacting. They will eagerly anticipate either the breast or the bottle. They will begin to show reactions to familiar situations with smiles, cooing, excitement or stilling. The baby enjoys bathing and other caretaking routines, enjoying the caring touch, especially when being spoken with or songs being sung during that time. Now, how it may seem different. It may be difficult to establish a healthy sleeping pattern. The baby may need to be woken up to feed beyond 4 to 6 weeks. So in the 4 to 6 weeks range, you might expect for some babies to sleep for longer periods and you're finding that they're not feeding enough and you want to wake them up. If that continues beyond the 4 to 6 weeks, then that may be a difference that we would need to consider. They may need a lot of rocking, a lot of continued closeness with their main carer to settle to sleep and to stay asleep. So with most babies, you put them to sleep on your chest or you rock them to sleep and then you can put them down and they will stay asleep. But there are some babies that you would just need to constantly be rocking them, walking around, or lying beside them, or they wake up as soon as you move. As soon as you put them down, they will wake up, and it's difficult to break that cycle. Natural early fretfulness that we talked about before, babies just out of the womb, the world is very big and very abrasive to them, and they will naturally have a fretfulness about their behaviour. That should begin to diminish. Reflexes remain instinctive without the intention to begin to gain attention. So the reflexes wouldn't really end until 6 months for the rooting reflex and 12 months for the sucking reflex. But within that time, those two reflexes also gain a communicative and socially interactive status. You can see the difference. If that doesn't occur, then that is a difference that we would want to consider for exploration. Any sounds may develop later and remain without intention to communicate. So if those cooing sounds that the baby was making, if those squeals of delight that the baby was making are not maintained, or they're maintained but they're not directed at you, they're not shared with you, the carer, even after the adult's attention has given it context of communication and interact. Baby may look at the carer's face, but not in their eyes or at their eyes when they're feeding. If a child is feeding in the usual position of the carer's arms, but they're uncomfortable because of the closeness, and they're uncomfortable because of the eye contact, then that would be a reason for concern. And sometimes if there are allergies with cow's milk, and you have multiple differences that I've mentioned, then that combined would be a reason to explore those differences. Often the main carer's tiredness and their strive to establish a routine so that they can feel as if they're parenting well can mean that they spend less time focusing on their interactions with the baby. In those periods, in those occurrences, windows of opportunities are often missed. Opportunities to create that interaction with the baby, opportunities to give context of communication and social interaction to a baby's sounds. you've missed the opportunity to say, yes, I understand, because you're actually busy trying to create trying to create the routine of the day. You're moving around and you want to make sure the bottles are ready, and you're trying to keep up with the housekeeping, and you're trying to do the cooking and the cleaning. All of those different chores, when you're so busy with them and engaged with them, can interrupt those opportunities where you would have been spending time with the baby and just interacting with them, just being the face that's very close and creating opportunity for giving sounds, behaviors, movements, the context of it being a communication. If those windows of opportunities are missed, parenting classes with a clinical psychologist or some one-to-one input can get you back on track. Oftentimes, if we are concerned, that may be the first point of referral. If the concern isn't overall developmental, but you're just worried about the fact that you're not able to connect with your baby, then some kind of input with a clinical psychologist would help support you regaining those missed opportunities with your baby. In hindsight, some parents have seen that these differences together make up a part of your narrative when later on children are diagnosed. So, for example, all the differences with social communication are present with children who later on go on to be diagnosed autistic. Often parents can look back and they'll say, my baby was a very good baby. They were very quiet. They slept for long periods of time, and I could get on with the housework and I could do lots of things. Or it would be the opposite, and it would be that they never slept. They could never settle. They never quite felt comfortable enough to be settled. And in turn, the parent carer also couldn't settle, couldn't be comfortable. In either one of those scenarios, we've had children who later go on to be diagnosed autistic. By the same hand, you could also have some children who struggle to gain eye contact when they're in a feeding position, or if you're holding them up later on. And that's not necessarily because they're not socially able to give you eye contact, but it can be that they are physically unable to hold up their head in the right position to give you eye contact, or that they're having to focus so much on their physical structure. So sitting up straight or just holding themselves straight when you hold them up. Being able to have head control. If you don't have good head control, that can disturb and interrupt eye contact, good eye contact. And there are many syndromes that can also present as a social communication difference, or a communication and social interaction difference. The next time, I think we're going to have a look at communication and social interaction for 3 to 9 months, for the age range of 3 to 9 months. The next time after that will be to look at attachment. Okay, I hope that this has been useful for you. As ever, have yourselves a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, a good day, a good week, a positive month. Keep yourselves upful until I see you again.